We are on the section 2.5, page 22, solving linear equations in one variable. Okay, we are going to learn the algebra skills to help you to do the steps. Okay, so it's talking about how to find the value of XYZ, things like that. Okay, so we just do one variable, just do the X. Okay, so we already learned how to plug in XY value, how to operate the variables algebraic expression, right? And also follow the order of operations. Okay, now we are going to solve linear equations. So first, equations means what? You must have what? Equal sign, right? Then we need to find out what kind of things we call them linear equations. Okay, so on your page 22 on the top, a linear equation in one variable, just x, all right, is what? The highest order, highest power, okay, and on the variable equals 1. So we talk about one variable means what? X, right? X is your base. Then the power position can be 1, means x times itself once, 2, or 3 times. Then we talk about the highest power on the variable is 1. It's only this condition. For those, we don't call them linear equations when you have an equation with it. Okay, we only deal with one power. So let's identify them first. So if I have 7x minus 3 equals 12, do I have an equation? Equal sign, right? With variable. Do we call it a linear equation? So your x as a base, power is what? Invisible 1, right? So this is a linear equation. If we have m squared 2, m squared 8, m squared equals 5. How many variables? We have 1. Is this a linear equation with equal sign? No. Why? Because power is 2, right? You will deal with this if you take an algebra course. Okay, but not for stats. All right, for now. And if we have 3, next one plus 8 equals 6y minus 4. Is this a linear equation? It is an equation, right? Is this what we call linear? Yes, because for the base y, one variable, how many powers you have? Each y only have 1. So this one is a linear equation. Okay? Now, when we have an equation and we need to solve it, okay? We are going to solve the equation means what? Find the answer for the x. What's the value of x? The way to do it, to solve it, means what? To find all the values, all the numbers works for the equation, okay? For the variable. That works. Okay, it means what? Which will make equal sign work, right? Make it work. And to do this, what do? The method we call it what? get the variable by itself on one side of equation. Okay, we want to find the value, find the numbers that will work. Then the method is you get x by itself, say x equals 5, that would be your answer. X equals 7, that would be your answer. That's the idea. Just get x by itself. Okay, so that's the method we are going to use to solve the linear equation in algebra. Then we need you to have those algebra skills to do the stats. Okay, then we write the steps and to show you how we actually do it. Then let's see some examples before we write down the step, which is what? To get a variable by itself on one side of the equation, right? So if I have a equal sign, it's like your balance beam. So if I say x plus 5 equals 7, what do you think x would be to make a balance, to make it equal, right? X is what? We are just guessing is 2. Is that right? To make it work. So two sides have to be balanced. So if I take away 5, I have to take away 5 from another side to make them balanced. So if I take 5 away, then leave x there, I take 5 away, and end up it's 2. Then if I take this away, that will become 2. That means what? Your x is 2. To make balance, to make work, that's your x. Right? So what do we do? If we do that, we will do this way, okay? So if you have 2, look at your example. You have an equal sign. Do we have a linear equation? X power is 1. So what do? First, you draw a line in between to balance each side with equal sign. So to be balanced, if you add one side, you have to add another side. If you subtract one side, you have to subtract another side. If you multiply one side, do it same thing as the other side, same thing as a divide. Okay, so idea is get a variable by itself, x by itself. We have to get rid of all other numbers like 3 and 2, which, you know, they are with x. We have to remove them to another, move away, right? So what do? So multiply and minus. So you want to multiply the most closest one, you do it the end to get x by itself. So you get rid of 3 first. If on this side it's a minus 3, you want to get rid of, you do the opposite, right? You do add 3. So you do one side, you do another side. So if you do that, so that 3 goes away. So you have 2x becomes what? 14. Then you want to get x by itself, you have to get rid of 2. What do you think? Answer is 7, right? So there are multiplication to isolate x. You have to do the opposite to get rid of 2, because multiplying to get rid of, you have to divide. Okay? Right? So what do we have? X is 7. So that will be your answer. Okay? So you check. To check, 2x minus 3 is that 11. So you plug back in. So 7 times 2 is what? 14. 14 minus 3 is what? 11. So that's how you check. All right. So let's write down the steps. How we actually do it to get what? X by itself. Okay, so step 1, what do we do? Right? So first you make it simpler. This one is already simple enough. So what you do is you simplify each side of equation when possible. Before we solve it, we want to make things as simple as possible so we can identify the result, right? To simplify means what? You don't want to have parentheses, then we are going to combine like terms, we call it, right? So you put the x's together, okay, then you end up and get x by itself, okay? And next one, you would do what? Move x to one side of the equation, okay? And move the number to another side. Right? You keep x on one side, you move number away. All right. Then you get an x by itself. You will do what? You do one side of the equation as you do it on another side. Right? So to get rid of, if it's plus, you do minus. If minus, you do plus. If it's a plus here, you do minus to move to another side, right? Then if it's a multiplication, you do division. If it's a division, you do multiplication. Then last step is you isolate your x that way. Okay? So we write down the steps. That's how we find the answers. And let's see more examples and see how we can get the answer. Okay. So we did example 1, and let's do example 2. Let's see. In stats, you will have less situation like this, okay? But just in case, we just follow through the steps. Okay, so first, we want to make each side simpler like this. By the way, it's complicated, right? So we want to get rid of parentheses. So you draw a line in the middle, so you balance each side. You do one side, you do another side, okay? For some students, it's very straightforward, okay? But for some of you, you get confused somehow. Then with a lot of practice, then you'll be okay, okay? So when we do that, if you have a parenthesis, you have to follow order of operations to simplify. You need to do multiplication first, and you also need to distribute them correctly with your signs. Okay, multiplication means multiply. You have to multiply everything in between, right? Okay. So you will be what? -3 times m will be -3m. -3 times -1. Negative times negative is a positive. It's a positive 3. Okay. When you apply to a group, if you have 2 apples plus a pear, okay, then if you have 3 bags of them, so what do you have total? How many apples you have? How many pears you have? So you have to distribute your number, right? Becomes 3 times 2, 6 apples. Then 3 times 1 pear, you have what? 3 pears. So when you have a parenthesis, when you multiply, you need to distribute them, right? Then minus 4m equals 24. So we try to simplify them. First, remove the parentheses, right? Remove parentheses and combine like terms. Make each side simpler. Okay? Combine like terms. M and M, they are the same. Numbers and numbers are the same, right? M and numbers, you don't combine them, right? So negative 3m minus 4m is what? Total negative 7m. So you need to handle your positive and negative correctly. Carry down 3 and 24, right? Now we want to keep variable on one side, number on another side, right? Keep the move a variable on one side, move number to another side. By opposite operation, to get rid of this 3, it's a positive, then you want a minus 3, right? To remove on one side to another side. So what do we have? Negative 7m equals what? 21. Then to get the variable by itself, isolate x, you need to do opposite to get rid of negative 7. Because it's a multiplication between negative 7 and m, you do the opposite, right? By dividing. So you need to know how to handle your fractions as well. If you have a problem with fractions, you can practice and get a tutor from LTCC Tutoring Center, okay? If you have a problem with fractions and with negative numbers, you might want to take, one more class before this to practice the fractions. Okay? So negative and negative is positive, 7 cancel. So you get m, right, equals what? Negative 3. So that would be the answer. If you plug in, you'll find out it will be correct. Negative 3 minus negative 1 is negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 3 is what? Positive 12. Is that right? Positive 12. Minus negative 4 times negative 3 is another positive 12. 12 plus 12 is 24. That's how we check. And you'll be okay. Okay? Look at the next one. You will have those problems on your stats. You need to know how to find your x to be able to solve problems. Okay? You need these skills. So, how should we start? Okay? Simplify each side when possible. That's as simple as you can get. Okay? Then we want to keep, second step, keep x one side, keep a number to another side. So draw a line, move the number away. Here says plus 4, so what do you think? You should minus 4. Is that right? Okay? So, what do we have? Those go away, right? Then, what do you have? X thirds equals 2. To get x by itself, you have divided by 3, you have to do opposite. Multiply by 3, right? How do you do your fraction multiplication? You put a 1 underneath. Then what do? You cross cancel. Okay? You need to know how to do multiplication for fraction. Otherwise, you cannot do anything, right? To do any math. Okay? So what's your x? X is 6. Is that right? So if we check, 6 divided by 3 is 2, 2 plus 4 is 6, right? So we check. That's how you do to solve the equation, linear equation. That's what we are doing, right? So look at your next page, next example, your page 23. Okay, next one, you have this condition, times 1/7 equals 1/4. You will have this problem in this class, and you need to know how to solve it, and you need to these skills to do your stats. Okay, so first you draw a line. Okay, and this is a group. Multiply 1/7. So what do you need to do? You want the whole idea is, that's original, right? To get the variable by itself. So we have an equation, we have variable, power is 1, so we have a linear equation. Then we follow the steps to get c by itself. Then we have to get rid of everything around c. So whole thing multiply 1/7. So whole thing c minus 2, that's keep it. Then get rid of 1/7 first. How do we do that? To get rid of 1/7, you multiply its opposite, 7/1, which is 7, right? For fraction. Then you do one side, you do another side. Then what do we have? Those 7 cancel. Is that right? So what do we have? C minus 2 equals, you need to know how to multiply your fractions, right? Then numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator, right? So 7/4. Keep everything just as what? Improper fraction, or you change it to decimal. So if you change it to decimals, and this will be what? Use your calculator, you divide them. So c minus 2. Is that right? Then what you'll see? What do you think you would do? Get rid of 2, get a variable by itself, you add a 2, right? Those cancel. Then what you'll see? Equals 3.375. So that will be your answer. That's how you will do it. Okay? Then next one, 58 minus c times 146 equals this number. What do you think? How should you start? First, you draw a line, right? Your balance being 2 sides. You do one side, you do another side. That's how you solve a linear equation. Right? To get a c by itself, first, whole thing multiply 146, right? Get rid of that fraction, you multiply what? Its opposite, times 46 over 1, right? So those can be canceled. Then to get a c by itself, it's easier that way. So this one, just a decimal. Then you multiply them, you will have this one. Use your calculator, right? Now, what do you think? Get a c by itself, you have to get rid of 58. 58 is positive, so you're minus 58. then you use your calculator, right, to find the answer. So this one is negative C equals, you will have negative 35.9982 here. Okay? So, did you get a C by itself? Not yet, because you have an extra negative there. Then how do you get rid of a negative? Get a C by itself, you can divide by negative 1, right? So negative divided by negative is positive. So you can get a C by itself. Negative divided negative here is positive. So that would be 35.9982. So that would be your answer for the C. Okay? So that's how we solve a linear equation. So that's your algebra skills for solving equations. Then we look some examples on the stats, how we possibly, will use it, those skills. Okay? Okay. Let's see how we are going to use this algebra skill you just learned to solve stats problem. Okay? Bunch of words, and look at the example 6 on your page 23. Okay, let's read through the question first, then see what do they mean. And you might get confused with all the terms, but that's what we are learning. Okay, learn all the terminologies and how to apply your algebra skills. Okay, let's read the question first. Page 23, example 6. The z-score for a given value for a distribution with population mean mu and the population standard deviation sigma is given by z equals x minus mu over sigma. Okay? And it says an online retailer has found that the population mean sales per day is 2,841 and the population standard deviation is 895. A value of is considered of outlier if the z-score is less than -2 or greater than 2. How many sales must be made to have a z-score of 2? Okay, let's see. Okay, many things you don't understand on this question, okay? We introduce you to many terminologies, okay? One is what? Something called z-score. And z-score is written like this, x minus mu and sigma. You don't know what does mu mean, what does x mean, sigma mean, right? So let's figure out. But we can do the calculation, okay? It says an online retailer has found that population mean, so we don't know what does population mean. So we are learning something called z-score is calculated by this formula, right? Another thing we try to figure out is what is population mean, okay? Population mean is what? Mu, because earlier it says population mean is the mu. And also the population, it says population mean sales per day is what? 2841. And the population standard deviation. Another thing we don't know is what? It's called population standard deviation. Okay? And also, let's see, population standard deviation on the top, it says, okay, let's go over again. So we have population mean, population standard deviation, and we also have X. So we want to find the Z, then we need to know what is X. Then what is mu, what is sigma, okay? So according to your question, read carefully when you first encounter those. It says the z-score is a given value, right? Given this formula with population mean, mu. Mu is your population mean. And the population standard deviation is the sigma. Okay, it's all given to you by this formula. Then let's look at the words. It says an online retailer has found that the population mean is sales per day is 2841. So it's telling you the population mean is what? 2841, right? That's what it's saying. And the population standard deviation is 895. You don't really understand in depth what does population mean really mean, right? Then what does population standard deviation really mean? So, but you know, we have terminologies called the population standard deviation, population means, and you use mu to do the population mean, and sigma to do the population standard deviation. Actually, we mentioned those terms, okay? Instead, you are going to use mean and standard deviation. Means what? Average. Standard deviation is the standard way of deviate from something. That's all you can tell from the wording, right? And they have two kinds. One is talking about population. You will find out. One is talking about sample, okay? For those two things. Population mean, population standard deviation. Sample mean, sample standard deviation. You don't quite understand the meaning, but you start to know the terminologies we introduced and the symbol we use to represent that idea. We always use mu for population mean. We use sigma for population standard deviation. Then in wording, it will tell you what's the number, okay? Then X is the variable. Usually we use X as a variable, okay? And it's the sample we choose. And Z, it always use as your z-score. That's the words we use with the symbols we use. You can connect that, okay? Then let's look at the question again. It says a value of X is considered an outlier if the z-score is less than -2 or greater than 2. If this one less than -2 or greater than 2, the number X is outside the norm, outlier, we call it, okay? Look at what was the question for this problem. It says how many sales must be made to have z-score of 2. Okay, so we want to have z-score is 2. Then it says how many sales must be. Is the variable x is your sales. That's your sales. Okay, that's the number we want to find. That was the question. If I give you a z as a formula like this, then we have some value given to you. Say, okay, in general, my average sale is 2,841. Then sometimes it varies, 895 more or $895 less, standard deviation, something like that, right? Then we don't know our x, then we want to keep our z-score is 2. It says how many sales must be made to have a z-score. If I want to make a z-score is 2, what's my x? That was the question, right? How can we do that to find the x? But at least you have formula, right? So formula is saying what? Z equals x minus mu over sigma. Then now z is what? You just plug in for the algebra part to solve problem. So z is what? 2 equals x, we don't know. The variable we'll try to find minus mu. Mu is what? 2,841. And sigma is what? 895. Okay, if you plug in, that will be that way. That's not z anymore, that's 2. Then we want to find the x. So, do we have a linear equation? Linear equation? Yes. Then we want to solve linear equation with x, right? So, we know division is a group symbol, the whole group. Then we want to get x by itself. It's divided by 895. So, how do we solve linear equation? Move x to one side, move a number away to another side. X is here, so we want to move 2,841 away, 895 away. How can we do that? Do the opposite. You know, do and to one side of the equation as you and to the other. So we want to get rid of 895 by doing what? It's division, so you do what? Multiplication. 895. Right? Then you multiply one side, you multiply another side. So your line there. So when you multiply, you divide 895 is over 1. So you cancel this, right? Then what do we have after this? So this side will be 1270, right? Then it's 1790. Then this is x minus 2841, right? Then get rid of this minus, you do opposite, you add. You need to practice a lot solving linear equation. Otherwise, you won't be able to do it, right? So, for some of you, you might have difficulty. And this one go away, that's x by itself. You add this one is what? 4631. Okay? So, you find your x. That's what we need to do. Okay? So, what does it mean? For the question wise, right? So what it's saying, then let's write it in words. So for conclusion we can make is if the day's sale is at this amount, right? This amount is a dollar amount we are talking about, $4,631. Then the z-score will be 2. That's what they want us to find. When z-score is 2, what's your day sale? is 4631, right? It's hard for you to understand the whole thing because you will have trouble to understand population mean, population standard deviation, because you haven't taught by, okay, you haven't learned that one yet. But without the skills, you cannot solve problems. So we need to use these terms for you to plug in to solve problem first before you learn the meaning later in your stats class. Okay? So right now, all you are learning is how to plug in, how to use the algebra skill to solve numbers before you can truly understand the meaning. Okay? Next one, let's look at the page 24, example 7. Okay? It shows you it's a rectangular shape, uniform distribution, right? Area is 1. So you have 2, 3, 4, all the way to 9. Okay? And it shaded some kind of area here. Okay? Then see what do they want us to do. It says the rectangle above is a diagram for a uniform distribution, right? When it says a uniform distribution, it means what? The whole area is 1. If it did from 2 to 9, they ask for the first quartile. Quartile means what? The first quarter of the area. What do you think? This is the first quarter, right? Quarter means 1/4 area, okay? The area of the smaller shaded rectangle that has base from 2 to quarter, we call it Q1, okay? That means this area is quarter. Then, and the height is what? It says the height is 1/7. Then the quartile means what? Means the quarter part, the first quartile. Okay? So it wants you to find what? Q1. Where is your first quartile? The Q1 is. So means from 2 up to Q1, this shaded area would be quarter of the whole area. Whole area is 1, the quartile would be what? The quarter. Okay? It wants you to find the Q1. That's what it means. Okay? So the first one, we use, you have different method, right? We learned for uniform distribution, we just use the portion. We can just do that. Or we can do it with what? Use the height. Because all your homework and all your textbook is using the height. Okay? But we can use portion for uniform distribution. It's much easier. Then we want to find the Q1, the number, which would be quarter of this. So my total base is what? Total base would be from 2 to 9, so it's a 7. Right? Then the shaded base is what? The shaded base is from 2 to Q1. It's Q1 minus 2. Right? The area is what? Portion. The portion, the shaded portion, its quarter means what? Up to quartile, up to the first quartile, right? Q1. So how do we do? we say this portion is a whole, part of a whole, it's quarter. That means what? Q2 minus, so you have what? Q1, that's Q1, minus 2, compare, shade the base compared to total base 7, actually is what? Quarter. Right? So we have an equation. Do we have a linear equation? Then we need to solve it, right? So 7 we get, this is the whole thing divided to different group. So you get rid of 7 first. So times 7 times 7, right? Put 1 underneath for your fraction. You cancel out 7. Then what do you have? You have Q1 minus 2 equals 7 over 4. If you change it to decimal, 1.75. Then what is your Q1? You add a 2, right? You cancel out this. So what's your Q1? Q1 is what? 3.75. That's how you find, say, if you do 2 over 2, 3.75, this shaded area would be quarter of the whole thing. So that would be your first quarter of the area, first quartile. Okay? Then your homework example, we use this method. Use the height. Okay? So we say shaded area is what? Quarter, right? Shaded area is what? Base times height. So what's the base for the shaded area? Is shaded area base is Q1 minus 2, right? Then times your height. Height is 1/7. Then equals the whole area is what? 1/4. Then, do we have linear equation here? Yes. Okay, to solve Q1, get rid of 1/7, you times 7 on both sides, right? So 0.1, so that canceled. So what do we have? We have Q1 minus 2 equals what? 7/4, which is 1.75, right? So Q1 minus 2 is 1.75. You add 2 on both sides. Q1 is what? 3.75. You get the same answer. Okay? One is what? By portion. You compare the bottom, become quarter of the whole thing to solve it. Another one use the area, quarter of the area. Okay? Then you solve your linear equation that way. Got the idea? The reason height is 1/7 because what? Whole area is 1, right? The bottom length is base is what? Equals 9 minus 2 is 7, right? So base times height is area. So your base is 7 times your height is 1/7 is 1. That's why your height is 1/7. Got it? Doing the math part, first you have to overcome how to do it with your algebra skill. Then you have to connect all the meaning of the words to your math equation or math expression to solve it. Okay? So in this class, mainly for pre-stats class, you learn all the terminologies, the basic terminologies you need. then connect with the numbers and symbols to solve problems. Okay? Let's look at the next example, number 8. It says a random variable x is uniformly distributed between 12 and 58. It means that x is a number variable randomly occurred between 12 and 58, right? Find the value c, so the probability that x is at most c is 0.4565. Okay, the probability means the area of rectangle is 100%, and the area of the rectangle up to c is 0.4565. Okay, so if you look at this, and we say whole area uniformly distributed, okay, the whole area is 100%. Then it's from 12 to 58, okay. The question is, find the value of c, okay. Find the c here, then the probability, all the things here is x, right? X, this is your x. Then x can be here, x can be there, right? Anywhere in between 12 and 58. But up to c is what? Happen at the most. At the most means what? Up to this number. Okay, at the most at the c, so this shaded area would be what? 0.4565. So the probability would be there, 45%, up to c. That's what it means. Okay, so variable here, any variable x is on this line, can be 12, 13, 14, or c, or all the way to 58. But if up to c, so the happen to here, the probability is around 45%. So we want to find the c. That's what he's talking about, right? So we have two methods, right? We use a method 1, used by the portion. So I want it to be up to here, so the total base is what? 58 minus 12 is what? 46, right? Then shaded base is what? Is c minus 12, right? By portion, this portion compare the whole portion, so the shaded portion, it says is what? 0.4565. So what do? We do shaded base over total base would be the portion, would be shaded portion, would be this. That's how we do. Right? Then, do we have a linear equation? Yes. How do we solve it? So you draw a line, you times 46 on both sides, right? Those cancel out. Then we have what? C minus 12 equals, you multiply them out, you should get, let me see, you should get 20.999. Okay, to find the C, what do? You add the 12, you do one side, you do another, right? So you get a variable by itself would be 32.999. Okay, so that would be your C to find the answer. Okay, then if it's like in your homework, you will use the method 2. Okay, you can get a final answer, just use a method 1. Then method 2, you will ask you for the height, right? So what do you think your height is? Right? The whole area, for the whole area, right? Whole area is 1, right? Then the total base is what? 46, right? Then base times height is your area, right? So your base is 46 times your height is 1. So what's your height? So you divide it by 46, right? So your height is what? 146. Height is 146. Okay, then for the shaded area, it says it's 0.4565, right? Shaded area is base times height, but the shaded area base is what? Shaded area is base times height, right? Shaded area base is what? C minus 12. That's your shaded area. Then times the height. Height is the same. 146 equals what? 4565. Right? You will write the equation. And with the height, right? With all the same height as shaded area and whole area, you get this one. Actually, this one is the same thing as this one, right? C minus 12 times 146 is this. Then you solve the equation just like that. You end up with C is what? 32.999. Okay, same thing, you do that. You times 46 times 46. You cancel, right? Then C minus 12 is the same thing. 20.999. Then you add the 12 on both sides. You get a C, same value. You will get the same answer, right? So your homework will show you this way, but this is easier. Just do it by the portion. But it only applies for the uniform distribution. Okay? So, got the idea? Okay, let's see. This will cover your section 2.5.